Chapter 1. Weekend. The weekend sun slanted low through the blinds of the small on-base house, painting stripes across the living room carpet like bars on a cage Cassidy had long ago learned to ignore. It was Saturday. No school, no drill schedule pulling her father away, and the air smelled of coffee and gun oil, the two scents that meant Dad was home. She was 15, all sharp elbows and guarded eyes, curled on one end of the worn sectional with her knees drawn up. Red-brown hair fell in a loose braid over her shoulder. She'd stopped bothering with anything fancier when the last PCS move left half her stuff in a storage locker somewhere in Germany. Across from her, Sergeant First Class Daniel Morrigan, Dad, sat in his usual spot, boots off, faded grey t-shirt stretched across shoulders that still looked like they could carry the world. A fresh scar, pink and puckered, ran along his left forearm. He hadn't explained it. He never did. The TV murmured low. Some old action flick neither of them was really watching. Dad held a mug in one hand, the other absently tracing the rim. His dog tags rested against his chest, catching the light every time he shifted. Cassidy watched the way his fingers moved, slow and deliberate, like he was checking for threats even here. "You eat yet?" he asked without looking over. "Yeah." A lie. She'd picked at cereal earlier while he was still asleep. Food tasted like cardboard when he was home, like she had to prove she didn't need anything. He grunted, the sound that meant he'd heard the lie and wasn't buying it. "Fridge has eggs. Bacon too. Make yourself useful." Cassidy didn't move right away. She studied him instead. The faint lines around his eyes that hadn't been there last deployment, the way his jaw tightened when the TV flashed a muzzle burst. Spec Ops didn't talk about the jobs. They came back quieter. Or louder. Or not at all, eventually. She knew the statistics the way other girls knew boy band names. Finally, she unfolded herself, bare feet silent on the carpet. In the kitchen, she cracked eggs into a pan, the sizzle filling the quiet. Dad followed a minute later, leaning in the doorway, arms crossed. "You're getting good with that knife," he said, nodding at the way she diced onion without looking down. "Practice." She kept her voice flat. Last summer, he'd shown her how to hold a blade properly, thumb along the spine, not like the movies. "For when you aren't here." He didn't flinch, but something shifted in his eyes. "I'll always come back, Cass." She flipped the eggs. "You say that every time." "And I mean it every time." The bacon popped. Grease spattered. She turned the heat down, then looked at him, really looked. "What was it this time? Training accident?" The sarcasm was light, but it landed. Dad's mouth twitched, not quite a smile. "Something like that." He stepped closer, reached past her to snag a piece of bacon straight from the pan. "Hot," he muttered, but ate it anyway. They ate standing at the counter, shoulders almost touching. No plates, just forks straight from the skillet. It was the closest thing to normal they got. After, he rinsed the pan while she dried. Routine, silent. Comfortable in the way only people who know silence can be. Later, back in the living room, he dropped onto the couch and patted the spot beside him. Cassidy hesitated, then sat. Not too close, not too far. He pulled a small black case from under the coffee table. Inside, a folding knife, matte black, no logos. The handle fit her palm like it had been waiting. "Early birthday," he said. 15's old enough." She turned it over, thumb testing the edge, sharp enough to shave hair. "Thanks." "Rules. Don't tell your mom I gave it to you, don't lose it, and don't use it unless you have to." "I know." He studied her a long moment. "You're too damn quiet sometimes, kid." Learned from the best. A real laugh. Short. Rough. He ruffled her hair, the way he used to when she was small. She let him, just this once. Outside, a crow landed on the fence post beyond the window, black wings folded, head cocked, watching. Neither of them noticed. The weekend stretched ahead, 2 more days before the next call, the next bag packed, the next goodbye. For now, though, the house held its breath. Father and daughter sat in the fading light, the TV flickering, the knife resting between them like a promise. And somewhere deeper than words, Cassidy felt the first faint stir of something dark and patient, waiting for its moment to land. Chapter 2. The Gift Lingers. The living room had gone quiet after the knife was handed over. The TV still flickered with the old action movie, but neither of them was watching anymore. The matte black blade rested on the coffee table between them like a small, unspoken vow. Cassidy kept glancing at it, thumb brushing the handle every few minutes, testing the weight again without picking it up. Daniel leaned back on the sectional, arms crossed, eyes on the ceiling like he was reading something written there. The fresh scar on his forearm caught the lamplight every time he shifted. Cassidy broke the silence first. "You ever use one like this on a job?" He didn't flinch. "More times than I count." "Does it make it easier?" "No." He looked at her then. Straight, no softening. "It makes it possible. That's different." She nodded once, didn't push. Footsteps in the hallway. Elena appeared in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, robe loose over pajamas. Her auburn hair was down, still messy from sleep. She leaned against the frame, watching them with that quiet, tired smile she saved for when the house felt full. "You two done conspiring?" she asked. Daniel's mouth twitched. "Just arming the next generation." Eleanor stepped into the room, bare feet silent on the carpet. She dropped onto the couch on Cassidy's other side, close enough that their shoulders touched. She reached over and picked up the knife, turned it over once, testing the balance the way Daniel had taught her years ago. "Early birthday?" she asked, eyebrow raised. "15's old enough," Daniel said, same unapologetic tone. Elena sighed, but there was no real fight in it. She set the knife back down, handle toward Cassidy. "Then keep it safe. And keep yourself safe." Her voice dropped softer. "That's all I ask." Cassidy closed her fingers around the handle again. "I will." Eleanor studied her for a long second, then leaned in and pressed a kiss to the top of Cassidy's head. "Good." She stayed there a moment, cheek resting against Cassidy's hair, one arm draped around her shoulders. Cassidy let herself lean in, just a little. Mom smelled like lavender soap and coffee, the same way she always did on Saturday mornings. Daniel watched them, expression unreadable, but the lines around his eyes softened. Eleanor finally sat up straight. "You two want to watch something else? Or are we just going to stare at explosions all night?" Cassidy shrugged. "I don't care." Daniel reached for the remote. "Something quieter?" He flipped channels until he landed on an old western, black and white. No sound effects, just slow dialogue and wind across the plains. No one complained. Eleanor tucked her legs under her, leaned her head on Cassidy's shoulder. Cassidy didn't move away. Daniel stretched his arm along the back of the couch, fingers brushing Mom's hair, then resting lightly on Cassidy's shoulder. The western played on in black and white silence for a while longer, the low dialogue and wind across the plains filling the room like a third presence. Cassidy stayed tucked between her parents. She didn't fidget. She just breathed, let the warmth of Mom's arm and Dad's steady hand on her shoulder anchor her. After the movie credits rolled, slow, no music, Daniel stretched, joints popping. "Getting stiff," he muttered. Eleanor laughed softly. "You're getting old." He shot her a look, but the corner of his mouth twitched. "Watch it, woman." Cassidy smirked. "The first real one since the knife." "She's right. You creak like the Jeep." Daniel turned to her, eyebrow raised. "Oh, yeah? How about we see if you can keep up with an old man tomorrow?" Cassidy sat up straighter. "Where?" "Mountains, Blue Ridge, Black Balsam Loop, just you and me. Early start, good hike, back before dark." Her eyes lit up, small, guarded, but real. "No, Mom." Eleanor pretended offense. "I get the day off from you two." Daniel reached over Cassidy's head to ruffle Elena's hair. "You get the house quiet. Read a book. Take a nap. We'll bring back stories." Eleanor looked at Cassidy. "You want to go?" Cassidy nodded. Quick, certain. "Yeah." "Then it's settled." Eleanor stood, stretching. "I'll pack sandwiches tonight. You two get some sleep. Dawn comes fast." Daniel stood too, offering a hand to Cassidy. She took it, let him pull her up. He held on a second longer than necessary, thumb brushing her knuckles. "Get your boots ready," he said. "We leave at 0500. She nodded again, the knife at her belt suddenly feeling heavier, more solid. Eleanor pulled her into a quick hug, warm, brief, but tight. "Be careful up there." "Always," Cassidy whispered. Elena kissed the top of her head, then let go. "Go on. Shower if you want. I'll handle the cooler." Cassidy headed down the hall, boots left by the door, hoodie still on. She paused at her room, looked back once, Dad already helping Mom clear the coffee mugs, their voices low, easy, familiar. She closed her door softly. The raven outside had flown off sometime during the movie, but the dark stir inside her hadn't. It waited. Chapter 3. The Ridge Trail. The Ridge Trail. Dawn broke cold and clear over Fort Bragg. Cassidy was up at 0430 dressed in layers, oversized olive hoodie over a long-sleeved tee, jeans tucked into hiking boots, new knife clipped inside her waistband, compass in her pocket. She ate a quick bowl of cereal standing at the counter while Eleanor packed the cooler in silence. Daniel appeared at 0455, pack slung, thermos in hand. "Ready, kid?" Cassidy rinsed her bowl. "Yeah." Eleanor hugged them both at the door, quick, fierce. "Be safe. Text when you're on the way back." Daniel kissed her temple. "We will." The Jeep ride west was quiet, classic rock on low, windows cracked to let in the changing air, pine giving way to spruce, flat land rising into ridges. Cassidy watched the highway fade, the world narrowing to road and mountains. They reached the Black Balsam trailhead just after 800. The sun was up now, warming the rock, turning the grass gold. No rotors, no alerts, just wind and the smell of high country earth. Daniel shouldered the pack. "Light pace. We've got all day." Cassidy nodded, day bag slung. They hiked in easy rhythm, boot on stone, breath sinking. Daniel pointed things out without making it a lesson. Deer tracks, bear scrape, the way wind bent the ridge grass. Cassidy followed, eyes doing the same scan. 2 miles in, the trees opened. The bald stretched ahead, grass, rock, sky pressing down. The world dropped away in blue-green waves. Daniel stopped at the high point, dropped the pack. Lunch spot. They sat on a flat boulder, legs dangling over the drop. No railing, just air. He handed her a sandwich, peanut butter and jelly, took turkey and cheese for himself. They ate slow, sharing trail mix, passing water. No rush. Cassidy stared at the ridges. "It's big." "Yeah," Daniel said. "Makes the base feel small." She nodded. He looked at her. "You ever feel like the world's too big?" "Sometimes." On Bragg. "Everyone's gone half the time. Feels like I'm standing still." He nodded. "Mountains do the opposite. Make you small, but not in a bad way. Remind you there's something bigger than the mission." She turned the compass in her pocket. "You come up here a lot?" "When I can." He glanced at her. "Wanted you to see it before I head out." Cassidy looked down at the drop. "You're leaving next week." "Short rotation. Back before Thanksgiving." She didn't argue. He put a hand on her shoulder, firm, warm. "When I'm gone, watch your mom. She carries it quiet. Don't let her carry it alone." "I won't." "And you," he squeezed. "You carry yours quiet too. That's okay. Just don't let it turn you hard too soon." Cassidy swallowed. "I'm not scared." "I know." He looked out. "But you will be. Someday. When you are, remember this ridge. Wind, rock, sky. Nothing else matters up here." They sat until the sun climbed higher, warming the stone. Daniel pulled out the trail mix again. They shared it, laughing quietly when a chipmunk darted close, bold for crumbs. No big speeches, no promises he couldn't keep. Just father and daughter, on a ridge above the world. The day was good. The sun was warm. Her dad was right there. For now, that was enough. Chapter 4. The Descent. The Descent. The sun had climbed high and started its slow slide west by the time Daniel and Cassidy turned back down the ridge trail. The bald was behind them now, grass giving way to spruce and pine, the wind dropping as the trees closed in. Their pace was easy, boots scuffing dirt, occasional pause to sip water or shake out a leg. Cassidy walked a step behind, compass clipped to her belt loop beside the knife, both items feeling heavier than they had on the way up. Daniel didn't talk much on the descent. He never did when the trail narrowed and the world got closer. But every so often he'd glance back, check her footing on the loose rock, nod once when she cleared a route without stumbling. Half a mile from the trailhead, the path dipped into a shallow gully where a small stream crossed, nothing more than a trickle over mossy stones. Daniel stopped short, hand up. Cassidy froze behind him. A low sound came from just off the trail, half groan, half curse. Human. Daniel's posture changed in an instant, shoulders square, head cocked, listening. He motioned for Cassidy to stay put, then stepped off the path toward the sound. She followed anyway, quiet, boots silent on pine needles. They found him 20 feet downslope, mid-40s, bearded, wearing a faded red pack and a torn hiking shirt. He was sitting against a fallen log, one leg straight out, the other bent at a bad angle. Ankle swollen to twice its size, purple bruising already spreading, sweat on his face despite the cool air. A trekking pole lay snapped in half beside him. The man looked up, eyes glassy with pain. "Hey, thank God. Slipped on the loose rock. Ankle went sideways, can't put weight on it." Daniel crouched, already assessing. "Name?" "Mark. Mark Reynolds. From Asheville." "Daniel, this is my daughter Cassidy." He glanced at her. "Grab the first aid kit from the pack." Cassidy moved fast, unzipped the top flap, pulled the small red pouch. She handed it over without a word. Daniel opened it, pulled out the compression wrap and a chemical cold pack. "Mark, I'm going to check the ankle. Tell me if anything hurts worse than it already does." Mark nodded, teeth gritted. Daniel palpated gently, professional, calm. No grinding bone, no open wound. "Likely bad sprain. Maybe a fracture. We can stabilize it enough to get you down." He looked at Cassidy. "Hold his foot steady. Gentle pressure. Don't let it move." Cassidy knelt, hands careful on Mark's heel and toes. Mark hissed through his teeth but didn't pull away. Daniel cracked the cold pack, wrapped it against the swelling, then began the compression bandage. Firm loops, figure 8 around the foot and ankle. "Breathe slow," he told Mark. "In through the nose, out through the mouth. Focus on the breathing, not the pain." Cassidy watched every move, how Daniel kept tension even, how he checked circulation by pressing a fingernail and watching colour return. She'd never seen him like this up close, calm, methodical, no hesitation. When the wrap was secure, Daniel sat back. "Can you stand with help?" Mark tried. Weight on the good leg, Cassidy and Daniel each under an arm. He managed to hobble a few steps, face pale. "Trail's not bad from here," Daniel said. "We'll go slow. Cassidy, you take point. Watch for roots. Loose stone. Call it out." She nodded, stepped ahead. They moved down the trail like that. Cassidy scouting, Daniel supporting most of Mark's weight, Mark gritting out curses between breaths. Every few minutes Daniel would ask, "Pain level? 1 to 10? Mark would answer, 7, then 8, then back to 7 after a breather. Cassidy kept glancing back. She saw the way Daniel adjusted his grip when Mark winced, the way he talked low and steady, same tone he used when she was small and scared of thunderstorms. At one point Mark stumbled. Daniel caught him, took more weight. Cassidy stopped. "Dad, I've got him," he said. "Keep moving. We're almost to the parking lot." She did. When they reached the Jeep, Mark was shaking with pain and relief. Daniel helped him sit on the tailgate, elevated the leg on a rolled jacket. "I've got cell service here," Daniel said. "We'll call for help. Ranger station's close. They'll bring a litter or drive you out." Mark wiped his face. "I owe you both. Seriously. I thought I was going to be stuck out here till tomorrow." Daniel shook his head. "Anyone would have done the same." Mark looked at Cassidy. "You're quiet, but you're steady. Good head on your shoulders." She ducked her head, cheeks warm. "Thanks." Daniel pulled out his phone, made the call, short, precise, giving coordinates and condition. While they waited, he dug out a spare water bottle and the last sandwich half. "Eat something," he told Mark. "Blood sugar's probably tanked." Mark took it gratefully. Cassidy sat on the bumper beside her dad. Their shoulders touched. After a minute, she said quietly, "You didn't even think, you just did it." Daniel glanced at her. "That's the job sometimes. See someone down, get them up. Doesn't matter if it's a battlefield or a trail." She nodded slowly. "I helped." "You did. Held the foot steady. Kept watch on the trail. That's not small." She looked at the wrapped ankle, the way Mark was breathing easier now. "I didn't panic." "Nope." Daniel put an arm around her shoulders. Brief, firm. "You didn't." The ranger truck arrived 10 minutes later. 2 rangers, a litter, and a radio call for an ambulance at the trailhead. They loaded Mark up with thanks and promises to follow up. Daniel and Cassidy watched them drive off. Then Daniel turned to her. "You good?" "Yeah." She met his eyes. "Thanks for letting me help." He nodded once. "You earned it." They climbed into the Jeep. Daniel started the engine, but before he pulled out, he looked at her again. "Next time," he said, "you take lead on the rap. I'll talk you through it." Cassidy smiled. Small, real. Deal. The Jeep rolled down the gravel road, sun low now, painting the ridges gold. Behind them, a raven lifted from a branch and followed for a moment, black wings cutting the sky. Then it veered away. Cassidy didn't see it, but the dark stir inside her felt it, watching, waiting, patient. For now, though, the day was good. Her dad was right there, and she'd helped someone stay alive. Chapter 5. The Road Home. The Jeep's engine hummed steady on the parkway as they descended out of the high country. The sun had dipped behind the ridges, turning the sky a soft bruised orange, the kind that made the pines look black against the glow. Daniel drove with one hand on the wheel, the other resting on the gear shift. Cassidy sat shotgun. Hoodie zipped against the evening chill coming through the cracked window, new compass still clipped to her belt loop beside the knife. The trail mix bag sat empty between them. Mark's rescue had left them both quiet, but not the heavy kind of quiet. More like the quiet after something real happens and you don't need to fill it with words yet. Cassidy stared out at the passing trees for a long time, then small voice barely above the engine. "Dad?" "Yeah." She swallowed. "Do you ever get scared? When you're out there?" Daniel's fingers tightened once on the wheel. He didn't answer right away, just let the question sit between them like the road itself. "Every time," he said finally, voice low, steady. "Not the jump scare kind, the slow kind, the kind where you wake up in the middle of the night and realize tomorrow might be the day something goes wrong. Or worse, the day it goes wrong for someone you're responsible for." Cassidy turned to look at him. His profile was sharp in the dashboard light, jaw set, eyes on the road. "But you still go," she said. "I still go." "Why?" He exhaled through his nose. "Because someone has to, and because the people who can't, they count on the ones who will." She nodded slowly, then quieter. "Do you miss us?" Daniel glanced at her, quick but long enough that she saw the flicker in his eyes. "Every damn day," he said. "Miss your mom's laugh. Miss the way you two gang up on me about the coffee being too strong. Miss knowing you're both safe at home. That's the part that never gets easier." Cassidy looked down at her hands, fingers twisting in the hoodie strings. "It's hard," she whispered. "When you're gone, weeks, sometimes longer, we don't hear anything. Mum pretends it's fine. She keeps the house running, makes dinner, smiles at the FRG ladies. But I see her check her phone every 5 minutes. I see her sit on the couch at night, staring at nothing." Daniel's jaw worked once. Cassidy kept going, voice cracking just a little. "And me? I hate it. I hate the quiet. I hate wondering if today's the day the knock comes. I hate that I have to be the strong one for Mum when I'm scared too. I hate that I miss you so much. It feels like something's missing all the time. Like I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop." She stopped, breath shaky. Daniel didn't speak right away. He reached over, took her hand, rough palm closing around hers, held it tight. I know, he said quietly. I know it's hard, and I hate that I'm the reason. Cassidy shook her head fast. It's not your fault. It's the job. I get that. I wish I could tell you how much it hurts without sounding weak. You're not weak, he said, firm. You're carrying something most kids your age never have to. That takes strength. More than I had at 15. He squeezed her hand once, then let go to shift gears as the road curved. But listen to me, he continued. When I'm gone, when the silence stretches and the news doesn't say anything and the waiting feels like drowning, you remember this. You remember today. The ridge, the wind, helping Mark. You remember you're not alone in it. Your mom's got you. You've got her. And I'm always coming back. Always. Cassidy wiped at her eyes with the sleeve of her hoodie. Promise? I promise. His voice cracked, just once, small. And if the day ever comes, I can't keep that promise. You keep going. You keep being steady. You keep watching out for your mum. You keep that knife sharp and that compass pointed north. Because you're stronger than you know, Cass. Stronger than me. She looked at him, really looked, saw the lines around his eyes, the silver starting at his temples, the way his shoulders carried the weight of every deployment and every goodbye. I love you, Dad, she said. Small, honest. Daniel reached over again. This time he pulled her into a one-armed hug, awkward in the Jeep, but fierce. I love you too, kid, he said against her hair. More than anything in the world. They stayed like that for a long minute. Engine humming, road rolling beneath them, the mountains falling away behind. Cassidy leaned into him until the road straightened. Then she sat back, wiped her face again, and stared out at the darkening sky. No more words for a while. But the silence was different now. Lighter, warmer. The Jeep carried them east toward Fort Bragg, toward home, toward whatever came next. Behind them, the ridges stood quiet. A raven lifted from a pine and circled once, black wings against the orange sky. Then it flew west. Chapter 6, The Last Evening. The Jeep rolled through the main gate at Fort Bragg just as the streetlights were flickering on. The sky had gone full dark, stars sharp above the pine canopy, the air thick with the smell of cooling asphalt and distant diesel. Cassidy leaned her head against the window, watching the familiar shapes of barracks and family housings slide past. Her legs ached pleasantly from the hike, the new compass still clipped to her belt loop beside the knife, a quiet reminder of the ridge, the wind, the way Dad had said, I'm proud of you. Daniel pulled into their driveway, killed the engine. The house lights were warm in the windows. Eleanor had left the porch light on, the way she always did. They sat for a second in the quiet. Then Daniel reached over, squeezed Cassidy's shoulder once, firm, steady. Good day, kid. She smiled, small, real. Best one in a while. He nodded. Let's go inside before your mom thinks we got eaten by bears. They climbed out. Cassidy shouldered her day bag. Daniel grabbed the empty cooler. The front door opened before they reached it. Eleanor standing there in sweats and one of Daniel's old army hoodies, hair loose, arms crossed against the night chill. There you are, she said, voice warm but edged with relief. I was about to send out a search party. Daniel stepped up first, pulled her into a quick hug. Told you we'd be back before dark. Eleanor hugged him back, then reached past him for Cassidy. Come here, Trouble. Cassidy let herself be pulled in, Mom's arms tight, smelling like home and lavender. She hugged back harder than usual. Eleanor kissed the top of her head. You two look sun-baked and happy. Good hike? The best, Cassidy said against her shoulder. They moved inside. The house smelled like chili, Eleanor's slow cooker recipe simmering all day. The living room lamp was on low, TV off, quiet music playing from the kitchen radio. Normal, safe. Elena waved them toward the couch. Sit, I'll bring bowls. You can tell me everything. They dropped their gear by the door, boots kicked off, packs set aside. Daniel sat in his usual spot. Cassidy curled beside him, knees up. Elena came back with 3 steaming bowls, handed them out, then settled on Cassidy's other side, close enough that their shoulders touched. They ate slowly, chili thick with beans and beef, cornbread on the side. No rush. Eleanor broke the quiet first. "So, tell me about this mountain adventure. Did you conquer the ridge?" Daniel snorted. "We sat on it, ate sandwiches, helped a guy who ate dirt with his ankle." Cassidy looked up. "He slipped." "Bad sprain." Dad wrapped it. I held the foot steady so it didn't move. Eleanor's eyebrows went up. "You did first aid." Cassidy nodded. "Dad talked me through it, checked circulation and everything." Daniel shrugged like it was nothing. "She was steady. No panic. Good head on her shoulders." Eleanor reached over, squeezed Cassidy's knee. "That's my girl." Cassidy ducked her head, cheeks warm. "It wasn't a big deal." "It was," Daniel said quietly. "You kept watch on the trail. Called out loose rock, held the foot without flinching. That's not nothing, Cass." Eleanor smiled, soft, proud. "I'm proud of you too, both of you." They talked then, easy, slow. Daniel told about the bear scrape on the tree, how the wind sounded different up high. Cassidy added the chipmunk stealing trail mix crumbs, how Mark had cursed a blue streak when Daniel first touched the ankle. Eleanor laughed, real, warm, and told them how she'd spent the day reading on the couch, napping, pretending the house wasn't too quiet. For a while, it felt like any other Saturday night. Then Daniel's work phone buzzed. It was on the side table, the black one, no case, no stickers, the one they weren't allowed to touch, the one that never rang unless it was urgent. The room went still. Daniel set his bowl down, reached for it, looked at the screen. His face didn't change, but Cassidy saw it, the way his jaw tightened, the way his shoulders squared like he was already halfway out the door. Eleanor went quiet. She set her own bowl on the coffee table, slowly. Daniel answered, voice low. "Morrigan." A pause. Then, "Understood. Time?" Another pause. "Copy. I'll be there in 30. He ended the call, set the phone down. The silence was different now, thicker. Cassidy felt her stomach drop. Daniel looked at them, first Elena, then Cassidy. "Short notice," he said. "They need me in tonight. Wheels up at 0400. Elena nodded once. She didn't cry. She didn't ask where or how long. She knew better. Cassidy felt the words stick in her throat. Daniel stood. "I've got to grab my go-bag. It's already packed." He moved down the hall. Steady steps, no rush, but no hesitation. Cassidy heard the closet open, the zipper on the black duffel, the quiet clink of gear being checked one last time. Eleanor reached over, took Cassidy's hand, held it tight. Daniel came back 2 minutes later, go-bag slung over one shoulder, wearing the same clothes he'd hiked in. He looked the same. But he wasn't. He crouched in front of Cassidy first. "Look at me," he said. She did, eyes stinging. "I'm coming back," he said. Quiet. Certain. Same as always. She nodded, jerky. He pulled her into a hug. Hard, fierce, one hand on the back of her head. "You were strong today. Be strong tomorrow. Watch your mum. Let her watch you." "I will," she whispered. He kissed the top of her head. "Love you, kid." "Love you too, Dad." He stood, turned to Eleanor. She was already up, stepping into him. They held each other, long, silent, the way people do when they've done this too many times. "I'll call when I can," he said against her hair. "I know." He kissed her, soft, lingering. "Love you. Love you." He stepped back, looked at both of them one last time. Then he walked to the door. Cassidy stood. Elena's hand found hers again, tight. Daniel paused at the threshold, looked back. "I'm proud of you both," he said. "Every day." Then he was gone. The door closed softly. The Jeep started outside, taillights disappeared down the street. The house was quiet again. Elena pulled Cassidy close. They stood there, mother and daughter holding each other in the doorway, the chili cooling on the coffee table, the TV off, the night pressing against the windows. Somewhere far off, a raven called once. Cassidy didn't hear it. Chapter 7. The Week Without Him. The house felt different the moment Daniel's taillights disappeared down the street. Not louder, not emptier, just off balance. Like someone had removed one leg from a three-legged table and expected it to stand the same. Monday morning started with routine, because routine was the only thing that kept the silence from roaring. Elena woke Cassidy at 6:30 with a soft knock and the smell of coffee drifting down the hall. No dad at the stove flipping bacon. No low voice asking if she'd eaten yet. Just Elena in her robe, hair pulled back, trying to smile like nothing had changed. "Pancakes?" Eleanor asked. Cassidy nodded, throat tight. "Yeah." They ate at the table, 2 plates instead of 3. Eleanor talked about the day, Cassidy's math test, the grocery list, how the FRG meeting was Wednesday night. Cassidy answered in short sentences. The empty chair sat between them like a ghost. After school, Cassidy came home to the same quiet. No dad's Jeep in the driveway. No gear bag by the door. She dropped her backpack, went to the kitchen, opened the fridge out of habit. Nothing looked good. She closed it again. Eleanor got home from her part-time job at the on-post library at 5:30. She saw Cassidy sitting on the couch staring at nothing and didn't ask stupid questions. She just sat beside her close enough that their shoulders touched. "Miss him?" Elena asked quietly. Cassidy nodded. "Me too." They didn't say anything else for a while. Just sat. The house creaked. A helicopter thumped overhead. Normal Bragg sound, but it hit different now. Wednesday evening was the family readiness group meeting. Eleanor had debated skipping it. "We don't have to go every time." But Cassidy shook her head. "I want to go." So they went. The FRG met in the community centre on post, folding chairs in a circle, coffee urn in the corner, kids' play area in the back for the younger ones. About 15 spouses, a mix of ages. Some new wives, eyes still bright with hope. Some older, faces lined with the kind of tired that comes from too many deployments. The group leader, Sarah, a captain's wife with 3 kids and a permanent half smile, started with updates. Care package drive, upcoming spouse coffee, the holiday potluck in December. Then the open floor. A young woman, maybe 22, wedding ring still shiny, raised her hand. "My husband's been gone 4 weeks. No call, no email. I keep checking the news. I don't know what to do with myself." The room nodded. No one interrupted. Sarah leaned forward. "That's the hardest part," she said gently. "The not knowing. You're allowed to feel it. You're allowed to be scared. And you're allowed to keep living anyway." Eleanor reached over, squeezed Cassidy's hand under the table. Another wife spoke up. "Mine sends one text every 10 days. 'I'm okay. Love you.' That's it. I read it over and over like it's going to tell me more." Laughter, small, tired understanding. Cassidy listened. She didn't speak, but she felt every word like it was happening to her. When they got home, Eleanor didn't turn on the TV. She made tea instead. Chamomile for both of them. They sat at the kitchen table in the dim light. "You okay?" Elena asked. Cassidy stared into her mug. It's weird hearing other people say it out loud. Like, it's normal, but it doesn't feel normal. Eleanor nodded. "It's normal for us. Doesn't mean it's okay." Cassidy looked up. "How do you do it every time?" Elena took a slow breath. "One day at a time. Sometimes 1 hour. I keep the house running because it's the only thing I can control. I keep you fed because you need to eat. And I let myself miss him. Really miss him. When no one's watching. Then I get up and do it again." Cassidy swallowed. "I hate waiting for the knock." Eleanor's eyes softened. "I know, baby. I hate it too." They didn't hug. They just sat. 2 people carrying the same weight side by side. Thursday and Friday blurred. School, homework, dinner. Cassidy practiced with the knife in her room. Slow, deliberate, the way Dad showed her. Elena worked late one night, came home with takeout Chinese and a tired smile. Saturday morning felt wrong. No dad waking them early for something. No plan. Cassidy woke up late, found Elena in the kitchen staring at the coffee maker like it had betrayed her. "Want pancakes?" Cassidy asked. Eleanor looked up, surprised, then smiled. Real, small. "Yeah, let's make pancakes." They did. Cassidy cracked the eggs. Elena flipped them. They ate at the table, 2 plates again, but they talked. About school, about the FRG ladies, about nothing important. It wasn't the same, but it was something. Saturday night, the phone stayed silent. Sunday morning, it rang. Eleanor saw the caller ID first. Her face changed. Relief, worry, hope, all at once. She answered on speaker so Cassidy could hear. "Elena?" Daniel's voice, rough from travel but warm. "Hey, love." Eleanor closed her eyes for a second. "Hey, you okay?" "Yeah, just checking in. Got a minute before we move again." Cassidy leaned closer. Daniel's tone was light. Too light. "How's my girls? Cassidy kick ass on that math test?" Eleanor smiled even though her eyes were shiny. She did. Aced it. "Good, proud of you, kid." Cassidy swallowed. "Thanks, Dad. Where are you?" "Can't say, you know the drill." He laughed. Short, easy. "Hot here. Dusty. Same old." Eleanor's smile didn't reach her eyes. She heard it, the thin edge under the casual words, the way he was talking to keep them calm, not because he felt calm. "You sound good," Eleanor said softly. "I am," he lied. Smooth. Convincing. Cassidy didn't catch it. She just heard Dad. She smiled. Small. Relieved. Eleanor did catch it. She always did. But she didn't let on. She kept her voice steady. "We miss you." "Miss you too. Both of you. More than you know." A pause. Static on the line. "Gotta go," he said. "Love you. Both of you. I'll call when I can." "Love you," Eleanor said. "Love you, Dad," Cassidy added. The line went dead. Eleanor set the phone down gently. Cassidy looked at her. He sounded okay. Elena nodded. He did. She didn't say the rest. She didn't say how she'd heard the exhaustion he tried to hide, the way his laugh was half a second too late, the way he talked fast because if he slowed down, the truth might slip out. She didn't say any of it. She just pulled Cassidy into a hug, tight, fierce, and held on. Cassidy hugged back. The house was quiet again, but they weren't alone in it, not anymore. Chapter 8. The Wrong Door. Cassidy hadn't slept. Not really. She drifted in the grey space between awake and dreaming, listening to the house breathe, the furnace clicking on at 4:47, the refrigerator humming, the faint tick of the clock in the hallway. Her window faced the street. She'd pulled the curtain back an inch, just enough to see the curb and the quiet line of duplexes under the sodium streetlights. At 5:58 a.m., headlights swept the block. A black sedan, government plates, GSA stickers on the bumper, rolled to a slow stop in front of the house across the street. Not theirs. The one belonging to Sergeant First Class Mike Torres, Dad's best friend in the unit, the guy who'd taught Cassidy how to throw a football when she was 9, the guy who always brought extra ribs to the squadron barbecues. Cassidy's heart kicked hard against her ribs. 2 men stepped out. Senior NCO, Sergeant Major, dress blues crisp, black casualty band on his left arm. Beside him, the post chaplain, also in Class A's, cross on his lapel, face solemn under the brim of his cover. They paused on the sidewalk, glanced around the still dark neighborhood like they were making sure no one else was watching, then started across the street, toward Mike's house, not theirs. Cassidy exhaled, shaky, too loud in the quiet room. Relief hit first, sharp and guilty, then confusion, then something colder. She watched them climb the steps to Mike's porch. The sergeant major knocked, 3 measured raps. The door opened after a long moment. Mike's wife, Carla, stood there in a robe, hair messy from sleep, confusion on her face. Words were exchanged, too low to hear. Carla's hand flew to her mouth. The chaplain stepped forward, gentle. The sergeant major said something else, voice steady but soft. Carla nodded once, stepped back, held the door open. The two men removed their covers and went inside. The door closed behind them. Cassidy felt it in her chest like a punch. Second-hand, but real. She knew that posture. She knew that silence. She'd seen it in her own mirror sometimes, practicing for the day it might come to her door. The sedan sat empty at the curb. Minutes ticked by, 5, 10, 15. No one came out. Down the hall, Eleanor's bedroom door creaked open. Soft footsteps. Cassidy heard her mother pause at the top of the stairs, listening the way she always did when something felt wrong. "Cass?" Eleanor's voice was quiet. "Careful?" Cassidy didn't answer right away. She stared at the window, at the empty spot where the sedan was still parked. "Across the street," she finally said. "Mike's house. They just went inside." Eleanor appeared in the doorway, robe loose, face pale. She didn't ask who they were. She knew. She crossed the room, sat beside Cassidy on the bed. Didn't touch her yet, just sat close. "Carla?" Elena asked. Cassidy nodded. Eleanor exhaled, slow, shaky. God. They sat in silence for a long minute. Outside, the bass was waking up. Distant reveille, a car starting down the block. Normal sounds that felt obscene now. Cassidy spoke first, voice small. "It wasn't us." "No," Elena said, "not this time." Cassidy looked at her. "But it could have been." Eleanor's eyes filled. She didn't try to hide it. "Yes." Cassidy leaned into her then. Hard. Sudden. Eleanor's arms came around her, tight, fierce. They held each other in the half-dark, the way they had the night Daniel left. But this time it was different. This time it was practice for something they both knew might still come. Across the street, the door finally opened again. The sergeant major and chaplain stepped out, covers back on. Carla stood in the doorway, arms wrapped around herself, face blank. They shook her hand, gentle, professional, then walked back to the sedan. Taillights flared red against the dawn grey as they drove away. A neighbour's door opened, someone who'd heard the knock, seen the car. Quiet voices, a hand on a shoulder. The bass kept moving. But in that room, in that moment, time stopped. For now, she held her mum, and her mom held her back. Chapter 9, The Neighbours. The sedan had pulled away by 6:15, taillights fading down the block. Carla's porch light stayed off for another 10 minutes, long enough for the neighbourhood to wake up and feel the shift in the air. No siren, no announcement. Just the quiet certainty that something irreversible had happened. Mrs. Ramirez from 2 houses down was first. She stepped out in slippers and a fleece, hair in rollers, coffee mug all ready in hand, like she'd been waiting for daylight. She crossed the lawn without pause, knocked softly on Carla's door. When no immediate answer came, she tried the knob. Unlocked. She stepped inside. A moment later, Kim's wife, Sarah, came out of their own house. Kim was deployed with Daniel, same rotation, same unit. Sarah was in yoga pants and one of Kim's old hoodies, face already drawn tight. She didn't knock. She just walked in after Mrs. Ramirez, head bowed, shoulders set like she was bracing for impact. Then the others. By 6:30, the street looked like a silent muster. Doors opened quietly. People stepped out in whatever they'd grabbed, robes, jackets, PT gear. No one shouted across lawns, no one ran. They just moved, slow, deliberate, practiced. Captain Ellis's wife carried a foil pan of cinnamon rolls, still warm from her oven. She slipped inside Carla's front door without a word. The retired first sergeant from the end of the block brought a folding chair and set it on Carla's porch. He sat. Just sat. Guarding the space so no one else had to. Eleanor watched from Cassidy's window, arms wrapped around her daughter. Cassidy pressed close, both of them staring across the street. "They're going in," Cassidy whispered. Eleanor nodded. "They always do." A young lieutenant's wife, barely 25, walked over with a tray of coffee cups from her kitchen. She handed them out on the porch like communion, then stepped inside too. Sarah came out briefly, eyes red but steady. She waved to another neighbour, motioned her in. then disappeared again. Cassidy felt the weight of it settle in her chest. The quiet procession. The way no one asked permission. The way they simply showed up. She'd seen pieces of it before. Meal trains after babies. Yard work after surgeries. But never like this. Never for the final thing. Eleanor's voice was soft. This is what we do. When it happens to one of us, we all carry it. So no one has to carry it alone. Cassidy swallowed. Will they stay? As long as she needs, Elena said. Someone will sleep on the couch tonight. Someone will make sure the kids eat breakfast. Someone will answer the phone when the rear detachment calls with more details. And tomorrow, someone else will step in. Cassidy stared at the house. Lights now on in every window. Shadows moving inside, hugs, quiet conversations, someone starting a pot of coffee. Normal things made sacred by timing. A tear slipped down Cassidy's cheek. She didn't wipe it away. Eleanor pulled her closer. It could have been our door, she said quietly. But it wasn't. Not today. Cassidy nodded against her shoulder. I feel bad for being relieved. Don't, Elena said. Relief isn't betrayal. It's just breathing. They stayed like that, watching the neighbours move in and out of Carla's house like a quiet tide. No one waved, no one shouted. They just did what needed doing. Eventually, Elena stood. Come on, let's make coffee. We'll take some over later, when they're ready. Cassidy nodded. They walked downstairs together, hand in hand, the house still dark except for the kitchen light Eleanor flicked on. Outside, the neighbourhood kept breathing. A raven landed on the fence post across the street, black wings folding. It watched the house with the open door. Chapter 10. The Days After. The coffee maker gurgled in the quiet kitchen like it was trying to fill the silence. Eleanor poured 2 mugs, black for herself, milk-heavy for Cassidy, and set them on the table. No plates, no food, just the mugs, and the 2 of them sitting across from each other in the half-light of the single bulb over the sink. Cassidy wrapped her hands around the mug. The warmth seeped into her palms but didn't reach deeper. Eleanor stared into her coffee for a long time. When she spoke, her voice was low, almost careful. I remember the first time it happened on this street. Lieutenant Grayson. His wife opened the door in her pajamas. Same sedan. Same knock. She stood there for a full minute before she let them in. No screaming. Just quiet. Like the air got sucked out of her. Cassidy looked up. How old were their kids? 4 and 7. The oldest kept asking why Mommy was crying. No one had an answer that made sense. Cassidy's thumb traced the rim of her mug. Carla and Mike don't have kids. Thank God for small mercies, Eleanor said. Then, softer. But she's alone now. That's its own kind of hard. They sat with that for a while. The clock on the wall ticked past 7 o'clock. Outside, the neighbourhood was waking up. Cars starting, garage doors opening, the usual Monday rhythm. But across the street, Carla's house stayed lit like a beacon. Shadows moved behind the curtains, people coming and going, carrying trays, bags, quiet comfort. Eleanor took a sip, set the mug down. We should take something over. Not right now, give them a couple hours, but later, soup or bread, something warm. Cassidy nodded. I can help make it. Eleanor's eyes softened. You don't have to. I want to. They spent the morning in motion. Eleanor pulled chicken from the freezer, set it to thaw. Cassidy chopped carrots and celery, slow, deliberate, the knife Dad gave her moving with new purpose. They didn't talk much. The radio stayed off. The only sounds were the knife on the cutting board, the simmer of broth, the occasional sniff from one of them when the silence got too thick. Around noon, Eleanor ladled the soup into a big glass container, covered it, wrapped it in a dish towel. She looked at Cassidy. You want to come with me? Cassidy hesitated, then nodded. They walked across the street together, Eleanor carrying the soup, Cassidy holding a small bakery bag with rolls she'd warmed in the oven. The porch chair was still there, empty now. The front door was cracked open. Voices drifted out, low, overlapping. Elena knocked once, soft, then pushed the door wider. Sarah saw them first. She stepped out of the kitchen, eyes red but steady. Hey, she said, voice hoarse. Eleanor held up the container. Chicken soup. Thought, maybe. Sarah's face crumpled for half a second, then steadied. Thank you. Come in. They stepped inside. The house smelled like coffee and grief, sharp, heavy, familiar in the way only military homes can be. Carla sat on the couch, knees drawn up, a blanket around her shoulders. Mrs. Ramirez was beside her, hand on her back. Two other wives moved quietly in the kitchen, washing mugs, restocking the coffee pot. Carla looked up when she saw them. Her eyes were swollen, but she managed a small nod. Eleanor set the soup on the counter. Cassidy placed the rolls beside it. Carla's voice came out raw. You didn't have to. We wanted to, Elena said. Carla looked at Cassidy. Your dad? He's still over there? Cassidy nodded. Yeah. Carla's lip trembled. Tell him. Tell him Mike loved him like a brother. Tell him that. Cassidy swallowed hard. I will. They didn't stay long. Just long enough to hug Carla. Careful, brief. Long enough to feel the weight of the room. When they stepped back outside, the porch chair was occupied again. The retired first sergeant looked up, gave a small nod. Elena nodded back. They walked home in silence. The rest of the day passed in fragments. School for Cassidy, work for Eleanor. Dinner, leftovers, eaten standing at the counter. A movie neither of them watched. Bed early. But sleep didn't come easy. Cassidy lay in the dark, staring at the ceiling. The compass on her nightstand caught the moonlight from the window. She reached over, picked it up, turned it in her hand. North was still north, but everything else felt off-kilter. Across the street, Carla's porch light stayed on all night. Chapter 11. The Call. The afternoon dragged heavy. Cassidy had come home from school to find Eleanor in the kitchen staring at the phone like it might ring on its own. They'd eaten lunch, sandwiches neither of them tasted, then sat on the couch with the TV off, just listening to the house settle. Around 3:40, the phone rang. Eleanor looked at the caller ID. Her face changed, softened, then tightened. She answered on the second ring. Carla? A pause. Elena's eyes closed for a second. Yes, of course. I'll be right over. She hung up, looked at Cassidy. Carla wants me to come over. The casualty assistance officer is there. They're going over details. Cassidy sat up straighter. Can I come? Elena hesitated, then nodded. She asked if you'd come too. Said it might help to have someone younger there. Someone who understands. They walked across the street together. The porch chair was still out, empty now. The door was cracked open. Voices drifted from inside, low, measured, professional. Eleanor knocked once, pushed the door wider. Inside, the living room was full but quiet. Carla sat on the couch, knees drawn up, blanket around her shoulders. The casualty assistance officer, a captain in Class A's, sat across from her on a dining chair someone had pulled in. A folder lay open on the coffee table. Forms, timelines, contact numbers. The chaplain from earlier was gone. A different NCO sat nearby, notepad in hand. Sarah was in the kitchen. Mrs. Ramirez stood by the hallway, arms crossed, watching everything like a sentinel. Carla looked up when they entered. Her eyes were red, but steady. She managed a small, broken smile. Thank you for coming, she said, voice raw. Eleanor crossed the room, sat beside her. Cassidy hovered near the doorway until Carla patted the couch cushion. Come sit, honey. Cassidy did, close enough to feel the heat from Carla's blanket. The captain cleared his throat. We were just going over the dignified transfer. It's scheduled for 800 tomorrow at Dover Air Force Base. Sergeant First Class Morrigan volunteered as escort. He'll accompany Sergeant Torres's remains on the flight home. The ceremony is closed to the public, but the unit has arranged a private viewing for family and close friends afterward, at the mortuary affairs facility on post. Carla nodded once. She'd heard it before, probably twice already today, but the words still landed like stones. Eleanor reached over, squeezed Carla's hand. Daniel will take care of him. You know that. Carla's lip trembled. I know. Mike always said. Daniel was the one you wanted beside you when things went bad. The captain continued. Gentle, practiced. The remains arrive by C-17. The escort team will offload, render honours. Sergeant Morrigan will stay with Sergeant Torres until the handoff to the funeral director. We'll have a vehicle for you at the gate tomorrow morning if you'd like to attend the viewing. Carla stared at the folder. I don't know if I can see him like that. You don't have to decide now, the captain said. We'll have someone with you the whole time, whatever you need. Carla looked at Elena, then at Cassidy. I was hoping, she swallowed. Would you come with me tomorrow? Both of you? I don't think I can do it alone. Eleanor didn't hesitate. We'll be there. Cassidy nodded. Quick, certain. Me too. Carla's eyes filled. She reached over, pulled Cassidy into a one-armed hug. Awkward, fierce. Cassidy hugged back, felt the tremor in Carla's shoulders. Thank you, Carla whispered. Thank you. They stayed another hour. The captain went over paperwork, benefits forms, survivor outreach, grief counselling options. Sarah brought fresh coffee. Mrs. Ramirez folded laundry in the background, keeping the house from feeling too empty. When they left, Carla stood at the door, watched them cross the street. Eleanor and Cassidy walked home hand in hand. Inside their own house, Elena closed the door softly, locked it, turned to Cassidy. You sure you want to go tomorrow? Cassidy nodded. I want to be there for Carla. And for Dad. When he gets back. Eleanor pulled her close, held on. Tomorrow would come. Chapter 12. Dover. Eleanor woke Cassidy at 4:15 a.m. No knock, just a soft hand on her shoulder and the quiet words, We're going today. Cassidy sat up, instantly awake. The room was dark except for the hallway lights spilling in. She'd slept in her clothes, jeans, hoodie, boots by the bed. Ready without knowing why. They dressed in silence. Black dresses for both of them, simple, knee-length, nothing flashy. Eleanor pinned her hair back. Cassidy pulled hers into a low ponytail. No makeup, no jewellery except the small silver cross Elena wore every day and the compass Cassidy clipped to her belt loop under the hoodie. The casualty assistance officer had called at 20:20 the night before. Captain Hayes again, voice calm, professional. The unit has coordinated flights. A C-37 from Pope Air Force Base departs at 0600. Mrs. Torres will be on it. She specifically asked if you and Cassidy would accompany her as support. Transportation will pick you all up at 0430. Dress appropriately. Bring IDs. Eleanor had thanked him, hung up, looked at Cassidy. Carla wants us with her. We're going to Dover. Now they stood in the kitchen at 4:30, coffee untouched on the counter. A black SUV pulled into the driveway, exactly on time. Dark windows, GSA plates. The driver, a young specialist, stepped out, opened the back doors. No salute, just quiet respect. Mum, Miss. Mrs. Torres is already in the vehicle. They locked the house, left the porch light on. Carla was in the back seat staring out the window, black dress, coat over her shoulders, eyes hollow but dry. She looked up when Elena and Cassidy climbed in, managed a small nod. Thank you, she whispered. Eleanor took her hand. We're here. The drive to Pope AFB was 30 minutes of silence, broken only by the low hum of tyres on E95 and Carla's occasional shaky breath. At the side gate, quick ID check, nod from the guard. The SUV drove straight to the tarmac. A Gulfstream C-37 waited, sleek, grey, engines running. 2 airmen in flight suits stood at the stairs. They saluted quietly. Mike's mother, sister, uncle, and cousin were already seated inside. When Carla entered, Mike's mother stood. They hugged, long, wordless. Tears on both faces. Eleanor guided Carla to a seat. Cassidy sat beside her. Eleanor took the seat across the aisle. The door closed. Engines spooled up. The plane taxied, lifted off into the pre-dawn sky. Flight time, 45 minutes. No one spoke much. Mike's mother whispered prayers. His sister stared at her hands. The uncle kept clearing his throat. Carla reached over, took Cassidy's hand, held it tight. "I couldn't do this alone," she whispered. "You're not," Cassidy squeezed back. Eleanor watched them, eyes shining but steady. They landed at Dover AFB just after 700. Pale grey sky, low clouds, cold wind off the runway. A blue Air Force bus waited. Simple, no markings. They boarded in silence. The bus drove them to a designated family viewing area near the flight line, a cordoned-off section with a tent, chairs and a rope line. No media, no crowd, just the families, a few officers, and the wind. Captain Hayes met them there, still in dress blues. "Mrs. Torres, the aircraft is inbound. ETA, 15 minutes. The dignified transfer will take place on the tarmac. You'll be able to view from here. Sergeant First Class Morrigan is the escort. He'll accompany the transfer case from the plane to the vehicle." Carla nodded, gripping Elena's arm. "Okay." They stood together, families clustered close, breath fogging in the cold air. The C-17 appeared on the horizon, grey against grey. It landed smooth, taxied to the ramp. The rear cargo door opened. The carry team, 8 airmen in dress blues, formed up at the ramp. Daniel stepped out first, tall, straight, Class A's, immaculate. He stood at the head, eyes forward. The team moved inside the plane. Emerged slowly with the flag-draped transfer case, carried at shoulder height, steps precise, silent. They carried it down the ramp, across the tarmac to the waiting van. Daniel walked beside, one hand on the case. No music, no words, just the wind and the slow, reverent movement. Carla's breath hitched. Eleanor held her steady. Cassidy watched Daniel, his face stone but his eyes flickering once toward the family area. The team placed the case in the van, rendered honours, slow salutes, stepped back. The van doors closed, the dignified transfer was over. Daniel turned toward the families, walked over, boots clicking on the tarmac. Carla stepped forward first. Daniel knelt to her level, took her hands. "I'm sorry," he said. Voice low, rough. "Mike was the best of us. I'll stay with him until the handoff." Carla nodded, tears falling. "Take care of him." "I will." Daniel stood, turned to Eleanor and Cassidy. Eleanor stepped forward. Daniel pulled her into his arms, careful, controlled, but tight. She buried her face in his shoulder. No tears. Not yet. Just holding. Then he looked at Cassidy. She walked into him. Fast, hard. He wrapped both arms around her, one hand on the back of her head, the other across her back. He smelled like jet fuel, sweat, and home. "I'm here," he whispered against her hair. "I'm here." She nodded into his chest. Couldn't speak. He held her a long moment, then stepped back, kept one hand on her shoulder, the other on Elena's. "I'll be home tonight," he said, after the funeral detail hands him over. Eleanor nodded. "We'll be waiting." He hugged them all again, quick, fierce. Kissed Elena, kissed Cassidy's forehead, held Carla's hand one last time. Then he walked back to the van, climbed in beside the case. The van pulled away. Eleanor, Cassidy, and Carla stood there until it disappeared. Then they turned back to the bus. The flight home was silent, but this time the silence felt different. Heavier, but not hopeless. Daniel was coming home, and not forever, not yet, but tonight. And that was enough for now. Chapter 13. Homecoming. The porch light was on when the black government sedan pulled into the driveway at 10:47 p.m. Elena had left every lamp burning, kitchen, living room, hallway, like she was trying to push back the dark that had settled in the house since Daniel left. Cassidy sat on the couch in her hoodie, knees drawn up, compass in her palm. She kept turning it over and over, thumb brushing the brass case like it might point her to something that made sense. The car door opened. Daniel stepped out. He looked the same on the surface, Class A's still sharp, hair a little longer, same broad shoulders. But the way he moved was wrong. No easy stride, no quick scan of the street. He walked like a man carrying something he couldn't put down. Elena opened the door before he reached it. He stepped inside. closed it behind him with a soft click that sounded too final. Cassidy stood, walked to him, threw her arms around his waist and buried her face in his chest. Daniel's arms came around her, slow, heavy. He held her, but it was like hugging a statue that remembered how to breathe. His hand rested on the back of her head, but there was no squeeze, no warmth, just presence. "Dad," she whispered. "Hey, kid." His voice was gravel. "Missed you." Elena stepped closer. Daniel let go of Cassidy, reluctantly, like it cost him, and turned to her. They embraced, long, silent. But when Elena tried to pull back to look at him, he held on tighter. Like letting go would break something. She finally stepped away, looked up at him. "You're home," she said. He nodded once, didn't smile. They moved to the living room. Daniel sat in his usual spot on the sectional. Cassidy curled up beside him closer than usual. Eleanor sat on his other side. The silence was thick, heavy, wrong. Cassidy broke it first, voice small. "How was the transfer?" Daniel stared at the coffee table. Quiet, respectful. They did it right. Eleanor reached over, touched his knee. "You did it right." He didn't answer. Cassidy looked at him. Really looked. The lines around his eyes were deeper. The silver at his temples looked like it had spread overnight. His hands, usually steady, were clasped so tight the knuckles were white. "Dad?" she asked quietly. He didn't respond at first. Then, voice low, almost a whisper, "It should have been me." The words landed like a dropped grenade in the quiet room. Elena's breath caught. Cassidy froze. Daniel kept staring at the table. My truck had mechanical issues. Radiator hose blew. We were in convoy, split up to mount other vehicles while it got fixed. I was supposed to be in the lead truck. Mike volunteered to take point instead. I let him. He exhaled, shaky, ragged. When the IED hit, it was his vehicle, direct hit. He was gone before we got there. I was in the truck right behind, close enough to feel the heat, close enough to see the wreckage, close enough to know it should have been me. Cassidy felt her chest tighten. The dark stir inside her coiled, sharp, cold, almost eager. Daniel's voice cracked. "He took my place. He died in my spot. And I'm here, sitting on this couch, breathing, while his wife is across the street trying to figure out how to live without him." Eleanor's hand found his, held on. "It's not your fault." Daniel shook his head, slow, like it hurt. "Doesn't matter what it is. It just is." Cassidy looked at him, saw the guilt carved into his face like a scar that wouldn't heal. She reached over, took his other hand, placed the compass in his palm. "You brought him home," she said, voice trembling. "You kept your promise to Carla." Daniel stared at the compass. Thumb brushed the brass case. "I kept one promise," he said, "but I broke another." Eleanor leaned her head on his shoulder. "You came back to us. That's the one that matters tonight." Daniel closed his eyes, let out a long, broken breath. "I don't know how to be here," he admitted, voice barely above a whisper. "I don't know how to sit in this house and pretend everything's okay when Mike isn't, when I keep seeing his truck burning, when I keep hearing him laugh right before the blast, when I keep thinking, if I'd just said no, if I'd taken lead like I was supposed to, he'd be the one sitting here right now." Cassidy felt tears burn her eyes. She squeezed his hand harder. "You're here," she said, "and we need you here, even if it hurts." Daniel opened his eyes, looked at her, looked at Eleanor. Then he pulled them both in, arms around them, holding tight like he was afraid they'd disappear if he let go. His shoulders shook once, twice, silent, no sobs, just the raw, quiet release of a man who'd carried too much for too long. They held him back. No more words, just the three of them. The house quiet, the dark stir inside Cassidy watching, patient. But tonight it stayed quiet too, because Daniel was home. And for the first time in weeks, the house felt balanced again, even if the balance was fragile. They stayed like that for hours. No one moved to turn off the lights, No one suggested going to bed. The three of them remained tangled on the sectional, Daniel in the middle, Elena curled against his left side, head on his shoulder, one arm draped across his chest, Cassidy on his right, knees tucked up, face pressed into the crook of his arm, breathing slow and even as exhaustion finally took her. Daniel didn't speak again. He just held them. One arm around Elena, the other cradling Cassidy. His grip never loosened, even when his shoulders ached and his legs went numb. He stared at the far wall, eyes open, seeing nothing. The guilt still burned low in his chest, but right now it was quieter, overpowered by the simple aching fact of them being here, alive, breathing against him. Sometime after 2 a.m., Cassidy's breathing deepened. Her body went heavy, head slipping lower against his side. She was asleep. Daniel looked down at her. The lines of her face had softened in sleep, 15 going on forever, still his little girl despite the knife at her belt and the compass she refused to take off. He reached over slowly, pulled the throw blanket from the back of the couch and draped it across her, tucked it around her shoulders, brushed a strand of red-brown hair from her cheek. Elena watched him do it, didn't say a word, just squeezed his hand where it rested on her waist. A few minutes later she shifted, whispered against his neck, "Let's get her to bed." Daniel nodded once. He slid out from under Cassidy as carefully as he could, lifted her in his arms, light as she'd been at 10, but heavier with everything she carried now. She stirred once, mumbled something incoherent, then settled against his chest. Eleanor led the way upstairs, opened Cassidy's door. Daniel laid her on the bed, pulled the covers up, stood there a moment watching her sleep. Then he leaned down, kissed her forehead. Soft, lingering. "Love you, kid," he whispered. Back in their own room, Elena turned off the hallway light. Daniel closed the bedroom door behind them. They undressed in silence, him stripping down to boxers and t-shirt, her slipping into the oversized army hoodie she still wore most nights. No words, no need. They climbed into bed. Eleanor curled into him immediately, head on his chest, arm across his stomach, leg thrown over his. Daniel wrapped both arms around her, one hand in her hair, the other resting on her back. He pulled her close until there was no space left between them. She kissed the hollow of his throat. "You're home," she said again, soft like a prayer. "I'm home," he echoed. But he didn't sleep. He lay there in the dark, staring at the ceiling, feeling the rise and fall of Eleanor's breathing against him. Her heartbeat steady against his ribs, her warmth seeping into the cold places he'd carried back from the sandbox. He thought about Mike, about the last laugh they'd shared over a warm MRE, about the way Mike had clapped him on the shoulder and said, "I got this one, brother. You look like hell. Rest." About the explosion, sharp, sudden, too close, about the silence after. He thought about the transfer case on the tarmac at Dover, about the weight of it under his hand, about the way Carla's face had crumpled when he knelt in front of her. He thought about the sedan that hadn't stopped at his own curb, and he thought about the two people in this house who needed him to be here. Really here. Not just physically, but present. Eleanor shifted in her sleep, murmured something soft against his skin. Daniel tightened his arms around her. He didn't sleep. He just held his wife, listened to her breathe, felt her heart beat against his, and for the first time in weeks, let himself believe, just for a moment, that maybe he could stay, that maybe the next knock wouldn't be for them, that maybe tomorrow he could wake up in this bed with this woman in his arms and his daughter down the hall, and the house would still be standing. He didn't believe it completely, but he held on to it anyway, because it was all he had left to hold on to tonight. Chapter 14. The Days Before. The house woke slow the next morning. No alarm, no routine, just the pale winter light creeping through the blinds and the faint smell of coffee Eleanor had started at 7 o'clock, even though she hadn't slept more than an hour. Daniel was up first. He moved quietly, too quietly, down the hall, past Cassidy's closed door, into the living room, where his go-bag still sat, untouched by the couch. He stared at it for a long minute, then zipped it open just enough to pull out a small notebook, flipped through pages of scribbled notes, unit codes, reminders, nothing important now. He closed it, set it aside. Eleanor came in at 7:20, robe loose, hair down. She stopped in the doorway. "You're up early?" Daniel didn't look up. "Funeral's in 3 days, need to get Mike's class as ready." Eleanor nodded, didn't argue. "They're at Carla's." He didn't deploy with them. Daniel exhaled, slow, heavy. "I know. I'll go over after breakfast." She poured 2 mugs, black for him, milk for her, and set his beside him on the table. Cassidy appeared at 8:15, hoodie zipped, hair messy from sleep. She saw Daniel's notebook, the distant look on his face. "What's that?" she asked. Daniel closed it. "Just notes. From over there." She sat across from him. "You going to Carla's?" He nodded once. "After I eat." "I'll come with you." Eleanor glanced between them. "We'll all go." Breakfast was quiet. Eggs, toast, no bacon. Daniel ate mechanically. Cassidy pushed her food around. Elena watched them both like she was waiting for the crack to show. At 9:30, they walked across the street. The porch chair was gone, the door was closed, but a light was on inside. Eleanor knocked, soft. Sarah answered, eyes tired but steady. "Hey, come in." Carla was in the living room sitting on the couch with a mug of tea. She looked up, managed a small nod. "Daniel." He stepped forward. "Carla, I need Mike's Class A's. For the funeral. I want to make sure they're ready." Carla's face crumpled for a second, then steadied. "In the hall closet, top shelf, garment bag." Daniel nodded. "I'll take care of it." Sarah led him to the closet. He pulled down the bag, black, zipped, heavier than it looked. He carried it back to the living room, laid it on the coffee table. Carla watched him unzip it. The uniform was inside. Jacket, trousers, shirt, tie. Brass dulled, ribbons slightly askew. Daniel looked at her. "You mind if I do it here? Or take it home?" Carla swallowed. "Here, please." Eleanor sat beside her. Cassidy knelt on the floor, close enough to watch. The morning passed like that. Daniel polished every piece of brass until it gleamed. Buttons, belt buckle, rank insignia. He realigned the ribbons one by one. Purple Heart, Bronze Star with V device, Army Commendation Medal with oak leaf cluster, Combat Action Badge, Ranger Tab patch. He measured the spacing with his thumb, adjusted until it was perfect. Eleanor helped with the shirt. Ironed it smooth on the dining table Sarah cleared. Cassidy brushed lint from the trousers with a soft cloth Sarah handed her. Carla sat the whole time, watching, occasionally whispering. He hated polishing brass. Always put it off till the last minute. Daniel's hands shook once. Small, almost invisible. He paused, steadied them, kept going. When the uniform was ready, Daniel hung it on a padded hanger, covered it with the garment bag, carried it back to the closet. He stood there a long time, door open, staring at the bag like it might speak. Carla joined him, placed a hand on his arm. "Thank you," she whispered. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked away. "I should have done more," he said quietly. Carla squeezed his arm. "You brought him home. That's enough." They didn't stay long after. Hugs, tight, silent, promises to check in. Back home, the house felt heavier. The next 2 days blurred into quiet routine laced with tension. Eleanor went to the library for half shifts, came home early. Cassidy skipped after-school clubs, came straight back. They cooked together, watched old movies with the volume low, sat on the couch with the lights dim. Daniel moved like a man in a fog. He cleaned the garage, organized tools he hadn't touched in years. Polished his own boots until they shone, checked the oil in the Jeep twice. Avoided mirrors. Wednesday evening, the FRG ladies dropped off a casserole, lasagna, still warm. Eleanor thanked them at the door. When she closed it, she leaned against the wood for a long moment. Cassidy watched from the kitchen. "Mom?" Elena turned, smiled, small, tired. "Just People being kind. They ate the lasagna at the table. Daniel stared at his plate longer than he ate. Thursday night, eve of the funeral. Daniel sat on the back porch after dinner. Cassidy joined him. They sat in silence, watching the streetlights flicker on. He spoke first, voice rough. I keep seeing his face, right before the blast. He grinned at me, said, "Catch you on the flip side, brother." Then the truck in front of us just disappeared. Cassidy didn't say anything, just listened. Daniel rubbed his face with both hands. I should have been in that seat. Cassidy leaned her head on his shoulder. But you weren't, and he chose to be. Daniel's breath hitched. Doesn't make it easier. No, she said, but it makes it his choice, not yours. Daniel looked at her, really looked. Saw the 15-year-old who'd grown up too fast. You're too smart for your own good, kid. She gave a small smile, learned from the best. He put an arm around her, pulled her close. They sat like that until the cold drove them inside. Eleanor was waiting in the living room. She didn't ask where they'd been, just opened her arms. They joined her on the couch. 3 people, 1 blanket, holding on. Tomorrow was the funeral. Tomorrow they'd bury Mike. Tomorrow Daniel would stand at attention while they lowered his friend into the ground. But tonight they had this, the 3 of them. Together. And it was enough to get them through the night. Chapter 15. The Funeral. The sky over Arlington National Cemetery was low and grey on the morning of the funeral. No sun, no wind, just cold, still air that made every sound sharper. The slow crunch of tyres on gravel, the soft click of dress shoes on pavement, the distant roll of a flag snapping in a breeze that wasn't there. Daniel had been gone since 600, picked up by the unit for final preparations. Eleanor and Cassidy drove themselves in the Jeep, following the directions Captain Hayes had left. They parked in the designated family lot, walked the short path to Section 60 where Mike's gravesite waited. The tent was small, white canvas, folding chairs arranged in rows. A few dozen people already sat or stood. Mike's mother and sister in black, Carla in a simple dress with a coat draped over her shoulders, Sarah beside her. FRG ladies scattered among the seats. Neighbours from Bragg. Unit members in dress blues. A bugler stood at attention near the headstone. Daniel was at the graveside with the honour guard. 6 soldiers in Class A's, rifles at port arms. He stood at the head of the casket, eyes forward, face carved from stone. The casket was closed, draped in the flag he'd escorted from Dover. A single white rose lay on top. Eleanor and Cassidy took seats in the second row, close enough to see but not in the front. Carla glanced back, met Eleanor's eyes, gave a small nod. Cassidy squeezed Eleanor's hand. The chaplain stepped forward, voice low, steady. We are gathered today to commend Sergeant First Class Michael Torres to the Lord and to honour his service to this nation. The words were familiar, scripted, comforting in their rhythm. They washed over the tent like rain on canvas. Cassidy listened but didn't. She watched Daniel. He didn't move, didn't blink. Just stood there holding position like if he broke it, everything would collapse. The chaplain finished. The honour guard stepped forward. 7 rifles rose in unison. Crack, crack, crack. 3 volleys, sharp, precise, echoing across the rows of white stones. Cassidy flinched on the first shot. Eleanor's grip tightened. The bugler raised his instrument. Taps began, slow, mournful, perfect. The notes hung in the air, lingered, faded. Daniel stepped forward with the other pallbearers. They lifted the flag from the casket, slow, reverent, folded it, triangle by triangle, hands steady, no tremor. The last fold tucked in. The folded flag was presented to the presiding officer, who turned to Carla. Daniel took it from him. He walked to her, boots soft on the grass, kneeled in front of her chair. On behalf of a grateful nation, he said, voice low but clear, and in recognition of Sergeant First Class Michael Torres's faithful service, I present you with this flag. Carla's hands shook as she took it. She clutched it to her chest. Tears fell freely now. She looked at Daniel. Really looked. "Thank you," she whispered, "for bringing him home." Daniel's jaw worked. He nodded once, and stood. The chaplain spoke the committal. "Into your hands, O merciful Saviour, we commend your servant Michael. Acknowledge, we humbly beseech you, a sheep of your own fold, a lamb of your own flock." The casket was lowered, slow, mechanical, final. A soldier placed a single rose on the lid. Then it was over. The crowd stood. People moved, hugs, handshakes, quiet words. Carla stayed seated for a long time, flag in her lap, staring at the grave. Sarah sat beside her. Eleanor and Cassidy waited until the line thinned. Daniel approached last. He knelt again. "Carla," he said, voice rough. "I'm sorry." She looked at him. "Don't be. You did what he would have wanted." Daniel nodded, stood, looked at the grave one last time. Then he turned, walked to Eleanor and Cassidy. They met him halfway. Eleanor stepped into his arms first. He held her, tight, like he was anchoring himself. Cassidy pressed in beside them. Daniel wrapped an arm around her too. They stood there, 3 people, 1 broken family in the middle of a cemetery full of broken families. No one spoke. No one needed to. The wind finally came up, cold, soft, carrying the scent of pine and earth. Daniel kissed Elena's temple, kissed Cassidy's forehead. "Let's go home," he said. They walked back to the jeep together. The gravesite stayed behind them. The flag stayed with Carla. Daniel was here. And they were going home, together.